Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who has guided us from the darkness to the brightness and from the stupidity to the cleverness. The Honorable, our guest lecturer, Professor Dr. Marco Tieman. The Honorable, our beloved head of Syariah Economics Department, Ustadz Asep Nur Halim, LC MPDI, and all of our beloved lecturers from Syariah Economics Department, and also our beloved friends, students of Syariah Economics, IPB University. Okay, so welcome back to our guest lecture, and today we're going to have a very great speaker who has attended, who will discuss about development of Global Halal Industry. I am Raihana Eka Putri, and I will guide this lecture until the end of the session. So before we start, we will begin this lecture by reciting Al-Fatihah together. A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin arrahmanir rahim maliki yaumiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in ihdinas siratal mustaqim siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi alaihim waladdallin. Amin amin rabbal alamin. Okay, may our event always be blessed by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Okay, our friends, we have studied the economics of the halal industry in our class with our lecturers, and now we will listen to the material directly from the practitioner. He is the founder and CEO of LBB International, and I think we have Professor Marco already. Hello, Mister.
Good afternoon, selamat sore.
Selamat sore,
Very
Mister.
nice meeting you, Ms. Raihana.
Okay, nice to meet you. Okay, how are you, sir?
Very well. I'm speaking from the Netherlands now. So I just arrived in the Netherlands from Malaysia. So here for 2 weeks, as I'm speaking next week at the Halal seminar in the Netherlands. So we'll be also sharing, promoting Indonesia as well, of course, here in Europe.
Okay, great. Okay, Mister. Nice to hear that. So, okay, we will directly go to the lecture. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, here you go.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Raihana. The distinguished also Dr. Iqbal and also academics from IPB University. It's a great honor for me to be a guest lecturer here this afternoon with you. It has been a great privilege also working together with Mr. Iqbal and colleagues on research, on joint research in the area of halal. As some of you might know, that I've been an academic part-time next to my work with LBB International to do research on halal supply chain, halal procurement, halal ecosystems. And I've been very privileged also to be advisor to governments in Indonesia, Malaysia, also the Middle East, and also for many companies that want to embrace halal in their operation. And I've been very privileged to be working in Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Middle East over the past 15 years on this important topic. I've prepared a lecture to share with you more insights on the key developments in the global halal industry. In particular, I will be talking on the following topics. I will be talking about halal market alignment. So what are the key developments and how should you align as a business to those developments? Also sharing more on halal standards and certification to give a better perspective if you want to get certified. What are the steps involved and the importance of choosing the right standards. We have the Indonesian standard, international standards, and different country standards. It can be quite a complex matter. We will also dive deeper in the halal supply chain and value chain. These are important emerging requirements where Indonesia is one of the most mature countries we have today from a halal evolution of halal perspective, and is the first country to roll these out, in fact, worldwide. So these are exciting times for academics and also students that are studying this and will be joining the workforce in the coming years. These are important developments that you will be working with. Then we have a short break, 5-10 minutes, and then we will dive into halal ecosystems. I've been very privileged to be working on the halal ecosystem development in Indonesia. I will be sharing more. And also then we will discuss more on halal risk and reputation management. So these are the key topics. So at the end of the session, we have a Q&A. So keep your questions until the end. So this is the program. So I hope this would be of interest. And please, ask questions and that we have a lively discussion with you all. Market alignment. In my works, I did my PhD back in 2006. I did my PhD on what is the application of halal in supply chain management. In my journey of understanding halal, I also created the evolution of halal, which was published in the year 2011, already some years ago. So how does halal evolve? And from my perspective, it's going through an evolution. So in the old days, I call that a Muslim company or Muslim-owned company. There was no halal standard. There was no halal certification. So it was based on mutual trust. So you as a Muslim were buying from a Muslim owner in a supermarket or butchery or shop. You knew the owner was a Muslim, so the products you buy from him or her would be halal because the Muslim will sell only halal. If he was not selling halal, that would be technically a sin of the seller and not a sin as the buyer. Then we had halal certification bodies coming up. In Indonesia, it was first Majelis Ulama Indonesia. Later today, we have BPPH that certifies a product or service halal. And by certification of halal, the halal certification body has verified that the ingredients are halal, that the production process complies to halal requirements, and there's a system in place for continuous improvements. We're now moving to stage 3, the halal supply chain, where halal needs to be addressed end to end. And Indonesia is embarking on that road. There's also a halal logistics standard already in Indonesia, the HAS 23000/5. Malaysia is also in 2010 already, they established the halal supply chain management system standard covering transportation, warehouse, and retailing back in 2010. Get a revision in 2019. So halal logistics has been already on the radar in Malaysia as well. Brunei is certifying halal logistics. Turkey is also making a lot of advancements in halal supply chain, and UAE as well. And I also, from my intelligence, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in the coming years might also move to the stage 3. So Indonesia, Malaysia has been the most mature halal ecosystems, which comes together with advanced standards on production, also incorporating the requirements for the supply chain. So Indonesia and Malaysia have been leading that stage 3 of the evolution of halal. Stage 4 is future music. We talk about the halal value chain, where halal needs to be addressed throughout the entire business value chain, including Islamic finance, takaful, the alternative to insurance, halal branding, halal marketing, HR from a halal perspective, sustainability. So there are many more components. More on that later. So halal is not static, it's going through evolution towards a halal supply chain and value chain. So you can see that as an evolution for countries. You can also, as a company, also assess what is my halal maturity as a company. At what stage am I? Am I halal certified? Do I address the halal supply chain or already the halal value chain? So you can see that as an evolution of halal. On the other hand, you can also apply this to a company to assess the maturity of an organization. A model I've been recently working on was to relate that halal maturity of an organization also to the Muslim consumer needs and wants. So on the vertical axis, you see the same four stages as in the evolution of halal, a Muslim-owned company, halal product, halal supply chain, and halal value chain on the vertical axis. On the horizontal axis, we see the development of what does the Muslim consumer needs and want. So the start was with halal trust, which is related to the Muslim-owned company. Then halal product related to the halal logo. So company is halal certified. Then what we see now, as halal is moving towards the halal product to the supply chain, that you see a lot in the news, halal lifestyle. And the Muslim does not just want to have halal certified foods, but halal needs to be addressed throughout the entire lifestyle of the Muslim consumer. And so in here, halal risk management and halal reputation will be extremely important for companies. After that, we see that the halal supply chain also requires traceability. So you have now also apps that can check if the product is halal certified and who is the certifier. We also have blockchain innovations are coming up to do tracking and tracing of halal products in the supply chain. So you see that in a maturity of halal supply chain, traceability will be an important component also to be addressed. So the Muslim consumer want the ability with the phone to understand if it's truly halal and the compliance in a supply chain. Beyond that, we see that when halal goes to a value chain, we see that the halal ecosystem becomes extremely important. And I've been working on halal ecosystems where halal needs to be addressed and can be addressed through advanced halal ecosystems like halal parks and halal zones. So we more on that later. So when we talk about the halal value chain, we talk about the total halal DNA of the company, the total halal DNA of a brand. So in this model of halal market alignment, it is important to have a matching corporate halal maturity towards what the Muslim consumer wants in a country. So if you're operating in Indonesia, you see that the halal requirements are moving towards a halal supply chain, that you also need to look at traceability put in place, that you need to go beyond the traditional product standard. You also need to address the entire supply chain. So there should be a proper match between the markets you're serving, the Muslim consumer needs and wants, and the corporate maturity. So the halal maturity is therefore an important key performance indicator to have as a company. And I've been proposing already for many years that companies should have objectives, key performance indicators to measure which are related to halal, and not just how many complaints we have related to your product, but more strategic indicators. And the corporate halal maturity, based on the evolution of halal, at what stage am I as an organization, is one of the key performance indicators which are critical to measure as an organization. So I'm now at stage 2, the halal product. By what year? Maybe 2025, we want to be at the halal supply chain maturity. By 2030, we need to be at stage 4, the halal value chain. So the alignment is important between what market you're operating and the maturity towards a halal supply chain and a halal value chain. What are some key developments in the halal industry which are important to realize? First of all, there's a major shortage of halal ingredient additives. There's a report produced by Dinar Standard called The State of the Global Islamic Economy. You can download it for free. So it's a good report to have. It always shows the trends and how much trillions the halal industry is worth. Talking about food, cosmetics, fashion, media, pharmaceuticals, and so on. The halal industry, no question about, is a fast growing industry. The key bottleneck in the halal industry is that there's a shortage of halal ingredients and additives. So the market is not the problem. The demand is not the constraint. It is the supply which is constrained. And where is it constrained? At the ingredients and additives. That is true for food, but also for pharmaceutical and for cosmetics. Because if you want to produce a product which is halal certified by BPAPH or in Malaysia, JAKIM, or other halal certification bodies, a lot of your ingredients need to be certified by a halal certification body, which is recognized by your halal certification bodies. If you want to carry the Indonesian halal certificate of BPAPH, your ingredients need to be certified by a halal certification body, which are recognized by BPAPH. And that is the problem. So there's a shortage of ingredients and additives which the right certificate. So this is holding back the halal industry globally. There's a major problem. Secondly, that we see that there's a lack of high quality halal products in Muslim countries. So even for basic food commodities, we are dependent on imports from non-OIC countries. The biggest exporters of halal are not OIC countries, not Muslim majority countries. Unfortunately, these are Europe, the USA, China. So these are the big exporters of halal. This is a problem. Why is it a problem? Because there's a new development on sustainability, on climate change. So you see now that those programs being established. I'm now in Holland. I come from Holland. I'm born here. Holland is one of the biggest producers of dairy, of milk, and also of veal meat. The government want to reduce farming in the Netherlands, in Europe, to meet climate objectives. So it's nice that you are bringing farming down in Europe, but the point is we are a big exporter to Muslim countries. We are a big exporter to Indonesia. We are a big exporter to Malaysia. We are a big exporter to the Middle East. So if we reduce our production in the West, it means there will be less food available for OIC countries. So that is a problem, that dependence on food for the import from OIC countries, where we are now in the West, are bringing farming, reducing farming. That's a big problem. So in other words, OIC countries need to boost urgently the production of food, but also non-food items in order to counteract that. Otherwise, we will see prices going through the roof, and we will see also increase of poverty, where people are not able to afford basic food commodities. We also see that the biggest brands, the halal brands, are brands from non-OIC countries. Like the biggest food brand is Nestle today, right? So there are opportunities to create new brands in OIC countries that can conquer the world. So today there's a limited role of OIC countries in the value chain, in the halal value chain. So the president of Indonesia, Pak Jokowi, as we are allowed to call him, he mentioned that Indonesia should increase the role in the value chain, and instead of exporting bulk commodities like raw palm oil, we have to do value adding in Indonesia itself and create value added products. And today, the Netherlands is the largest importer of palm oil in the world. And the value adding of palm oil happens a lot in the Netherlands, where we have Unilever making ice creams, making washing powders from the palm oil from Indonesia and Malaysia. So the big money is earned in the Rotterdam. The actual palm oil cluster is in Rotterdam, where they are adding value, where they have palm oil refineries, where they make ice creams from the Malaysian and Indonesian palm oil, where they make washing powders from the palm oil. So those production clusters need to be in Indonesia. And Pak Jokowi has been developing strategies to make sure that value adding happens in Indonesia itself, instead of letting it happen in other countries. We also see that the halal industries are highly fragmented. We learn, all of you know about the Ummah, the importance of working together with your brothers and sisters, but the practice is not the case. So we have to work together with other OIC countries in linking industrial clusters together in order to create those synergy advantages through collaboration within a supply chain and also with other supply chains to reduce costs, to improve the halal integrity, and to increase value and increase the role of the OIC, the Muslim world, in the value chain and the halal produce value chain of food, cosmetics, and also other products. We also see in the evolution of halal that halal is moving quickly away from a product approach towards a supply chain and a value chain approach. Evidence supports, also in my research and also research by IPB, is that halal becomes more complex. It becomes more complex to manage for brand owners. Therefore, there's a need for more advanced ecosystem, halal ecosystems. And one of those important vehicles are halal parks. So later I will share with you more insight into one of the most iconic, I think, halal park developments in the world, which is happening in Indonesia, Modern Halal Valley, which is 500 hectares halal industrial development in Banten, Cikande, based on a new concept of a total cluster. So Indonesia has made important steps, and there are also other halal parks being developed in Indonesia. Malaysia, we have about 22 halal parks already. So the halal parks will be an important instrument in simplifying halal for companies and creating that environment that allows brand owners to move to a halal supply chain and a halal value chain in a simplified way for brand owners. So those are the key, I think, mega trends, I think, in the halal industries. I might share a lot of problems, which I see from my perspective. And I think as a person involved with industries, these are important also opportunities, I think, at the same time for new entrepreneurs from Indonesia, for multinationals in Indonesia that can play a key role. And as Indonesia is hosting the world's largest halal Muslim community, I think it is an obligation, next to consuming halal, is also to produce halal. So I think there's an important obligation in taking a leadership role for Indonesia in the halal industry. So where are the opportunities, I think, for Indonesia in particular? I think farming. Indonesia is blessed with beautiful land, lowlands, highlands, different temperature zones. I do a lot of work in the Middle East. I was in January in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where I'm also a board member to a company in Saudi Arabia. In Saudi Arabia, if you throw a seed on the ground, it will not grow because it's very dry. It's all sand there. If you throw a seed on the ground in Indonesia, it will grow. You have a beautiful soil to produce agriculture products. You have a labor force that good skills in farming. So I think there's an opportunity to, next to palm oil, also to produce other crops for the world, herbs. Many kinds of products can be produced in Indonesia in a sustainable way, organic, ensuring animal welfare, and of course, to be halal certified with the beautiful halal logo of Indonesia to bring that to the world. Instead of just sending raw materials, agriculture crops overseas, I think these products should be processed in Indonesia into ingredients and additives. There's a shortage of what I mentioned before of ingredients and additives. So Indonesia could be the powerhouse for halal ingredients and additives. It could be like the Intel inside. Some computers have Intel inside, sticker on your computer, Intel inside. So this Indonesia could be Indonesia inside of in any product, in any food product, any cosmetics products, there is the Indonesia product inside. Opportunities there to create industries in food, in cosmetics, and pharmaceuticals in Indonesia to produce ingredients and additives. And products as well, consumer products that are high quality, sustainable, organic, animal welfare in place, and of course halal certified. Also opportunities are there for halal certified logistics and supply chain services, storage, transportation, also seaports, I think also should be halal certified, airports to be halal certified, also to create regional distribution centers to do value adding. So for example, you bring in products from other neighboring countries like Vietnam and Thailand, and you can also do repackaging, light processing in Indonesia, and then send it out in the halal Indonesia. I love Indonesian food. When I was small, my mother was always cooking Indonesian food. We have a lot of Indonesian restaurants, also in the Netherlands. But what we see, those Indonesian restaurants buy their food, Asian food, from Thai traders, because there are no Indonesian traders. And so there are also opportunities, I think, to create Indonesian trading companies that are bringing Indonesian products, supplying restaurants all over the world. You see a lot of Indonesian restaurants all over the world. So we need a supporting halal trading network of Indonesian traders, bringing Indonesian products to the world instead of relying on the Thai and Chinese traders. Opportunities, I think, in the halal industry for entrepreneurs among you. So that is the topic, to share some more insight on the halal market development opportunities and halal market alignment. I was asked also to give some insight into halal standards and certification. I'm not here to share the details on the Indonesian halal standard. I'm sure that most of you are familiar with the HAS 23000, probably better than I am. I want to share with you some key components from my experience as advisor to small companies, but also multinational companies to get them halal certified. So the basis of halal certification is to create a blueprint, the halal assurance system. So similar to a quality system, you establish a halal assurance system, which is a management system which is developed, implemented, and maintained to manage the entire key activities in a company: purchase, production, materials handling, distribution, and other services in accordance with a halal standard. So you build up a halal system, halal assurance system, in accordance to a halal standard. So if you're using the Indonesian standard, you have to refer to the HAS 23000. If you're using the Malaysian standard, you need to refer to the MS relevant standards, depending on the product. It's good to understand that with halal certification, a lot of companies that are new to halal certification have already an ISO system, quality system, or HACCP system, food safety system, and that's always the basis. Halal and tayyib always come together. We learned it from the Holy Quran. When in the Holy Quran we learn about halal, is always halal and tayyib always comes together. And the same you have to see this in halal assurance system, where halal is on top of the quality system and does not replace the quality management system. And this perspective is so important because that is the issue with a lot of SMEs. small, medium enterprises, and particularly also with micro SMEs, which they have many in Indonesia, is that the challenge there to get them halal certified is not the halal part. It is the quality management system, which is often lacking with micro SMEs. And that's the biggest challenge. It's not the halal portion. It is the QMS, which is missing. And that's a big challenge for Indonesia. More on that later. When we build a halal assurance system, it consists of a few components. So process, control, organization, information, I always call that. So the processes looking at the sourcing of products, ingredients, what is allowed as components or ingredients of the product. Primary packaging, materials allowed. So Indonesia allows the use of recycled materials, which I think has been is a great decision. That's unfortunately not the case in every country. So like in Malaysia, it is not allowed to use recycled materials for primary packaging. So primary packaging material is the packaging of the bottle, the packaging that is touching the actual product. So there are differences of opinion in different countries of the use of recycled materials for primary packaging. A big issue, especially when under the sustainability, climate change, and the Green Deal agenda, which is rolled out globally, is that there is a lot of concern on the impact to the environment. So this is something that needs to be addressed by the Muslim world. I'm also a committee member, technical committee member of OIC SMIC, which is in charge of international standards. This is based in Turkey. And I have also addressed to them the importance to harmonize the issue of primary packaging. So that is harmonized between OIC countries, critical. Production process and materials handling requirements are important. Looking at the production process, important to identify the halal control points, but also in the storage and transportation requirements. As halal requires supply chain approach, and also the HAS 23000 also has requirements on storage and transportation, that they are properly segregated, the halal products from non-halal. Control covers the requirements from the halal certification body regarding the chapters division in the document, also operation facility requirements, handling of non-complaints, non-conformance handling, management review of the halal assurance system, and of course the list of which halal certification bodies are recognized by BPIPH. Organization covers the halal policy, internal halal committee, the halal management team called in Indonesia, internal halal audit which needs to be taken place, and halal training and education. Information addresses traceability of products, labeling of halal logo on the products that is also specified by the halal certification body. Possibly halal coding on freight documents, which is something I've been recommending to identify halal properly on the freight labels in IT system and also on the freight documentation. And also how you communicate with the halal certification. Important to have a good relationship with the halal certification body, also in case where you need them when there are halal issues as well. So about halal standards. So there are about 400 different halal certification bodies in the world. Indonesia, we have BPIPH as halal certification body. Malaysia, we have JAKIM. In Singapore, MUIS. In Thailand, we have CCOT. But in a lot of non-Muslim countries, we have many. So in Holland, we have about 15 halal certification bodies. I can go this afternoon. It's now still morning here. I can go to the Chamber of Commerce in Holland, and then I can ask, I want to set up a halal certification body, Marco Halal. Within 5 minutes, I will be walking out of the Chamber of Commerce with a company certificate of the company Marco Halal, a halal certification body. There's no accreditation required in the Netherlands, and I can just rubber stamp halal certificates. So there are many halal certification in the world, and for a lot of companies that are based in non-Muslim countries, it can become quite complex, which halal certification is reliable. And every halal certification body has its own halal standard, and some halal certification bodies have even no halal standard. So there are so many interpretations of halal and halal standard as there are halal certification bodies, which makes it pretty complex. So what are important considerations for choosing a halal standard? So first of all, by which other halal certification bodies is this certification body recognized? So if you're certified by the Indonesian halal certification body, that gives you access to a lot of markets, whereas if I'm dealing with a certification body in the Netherlands, which is not recognized by the Indonesian halal certification body, the Malaysian halal certification body, in the United Arab Emirates, and then you cannot export to certain markets. So it's important to know the recognition of the halal certification body by other countries. And that's exactly the advantage, and why I have been recommending a lot of multinational companies also to use Indonesian halal standard, because it opens markets to every country. So that's the advantage of the Indonesian halal standards. Whereas if you have a standard like certified by JAKIM in Malaysia for a consumer product, I'm still not able to show my halal logo in the Indonesian retail. So Indonesia really has some great advantage as a halal certificate to carry. That makes halal Indonesia very strong. So I had a choice which halal certification body to go for is normally the question for marketing. So what are your export goals? Which markets do you want to serve? Based on that, you detail what are the possible halal certificates I should have or could potentially have. What products components need to be halal certified, what ingredients and primary packaging. So Malaysia's halal certificate is very strict. In principles, every ingredient that is processed needs to carry an halal certificate. That's not the case in Indonesia. Indonesia has a green list of ingredients that do not require a halal certificate, which is great. Primary packaging is an issue also. With the environmental awareness and climate change agenda, we see that there's a lot of pressure for companies to use recycled materials. So does my halal certification body allow the use of recycled materials? An important consideration. What are slaughtering requirements for animal-based ingredients? So there are different perspectives on the use of animal-based ingredients related to two aspects of slaughter, namely the stunning or no stunning, and machine slaughter versus hand slaughter. So there are different perspectives, even in the one Islamic school of thought. So Indonesia for poultry allows machine slaughter and stunning. Malaysia only allows hand slaughter but allows stunning. Brunei only requires no stunning and hand slaughter. So there are different perspectives on slaughter. So this has implications for your sourcing of ingredients and meat products. Is recycling allowed? It's an important consideration, which I mentioned before. Which halal certification bodies does this halal certification body recognize for ingredients, additives? So have implication directly on your ingredients can source. Implications for organization and supply chain. Are there requirements regarding the financing through the halal certification body? Are there requirements on logistics? Are they being audited by the halal certification body? And also the requirements for halal management team. And this is also an interesting one, because some halal certification bodies they require the halal management team to be all Muslim. And that can be an issue in non-Muslim countries. I did a halal certification for a logistic company in France. and they had some Muslim staff, but only drivers. So we had to put a truck driver as the chairman of the halal management team. Might be a little bit uncomfortable situation for a company, also not practical, because the chairman also need to be competent. So we have to make sure that those requirements are also practical, also in non-OIC countries. Another consideration is how supportive, how easy is the halal certification body to reach when there's a halal crisis or a halal issue. And we have seen instances where some halal certification bodies were not reacting fast and not fully supportive when a brand owner was in trouble, certified by that halal certification body. So these are business considerations to have a preference for one or other halal certification bodies. So Halal Indonesia, the new halal logo you see here. What we have seen is that Law 33 is being implemented. So we have seen, I think, 4 important changes taking into effect. Already some have been taking effect and coming into effect in the coming years. So first, the big change was BPPH became a new halal certification body. MUI, as a halal certification body, became head of the Fatwa committee and also an auditor. BPPH became the certifier. New halal logo, this one, has been introduced. Nice, beautiful halal logo. So a lot of branding will be required to put this logo to make it people familiar, not only in Indonesia, but also outside Indonesia, I think is important. Also, we have seen new halal standards are being developed under the HAS 23000, also logistics standard 23000/5. Also, the plan was to create new halal standards for the basic standard, for the food standard. So that I think is still in planning. Also being rolled out is to make halal certification mandatory from October 2024 for food first, other products later. It's good to realize that it's not only the food producer that needs to be halal certified, but also the parties in the supply chain. So also, like if I'm a distributor for halal food, I also need to be halal certified, a retailer, a supermarket, a restaurant, and also logistics service provider, including seaport. I think that awareness, so that is not only the food brand owner, the producer or restaurant, I think is still a little bit lacking. So I think it's important that the Indonesian government clearly communicates to the industry, also the service industry, like the distributor, logistics service provider, seaport and airport operator, that this new regulation, Law 33, also applies to them. I think that is still needed. Another concern I have when making halal certification mandatory is also that this also applies to the SMEs and micro SMEs, and the number of micro SMEs is huge. To bring them on board, the idea is to do self-declaration by the micro SME to the halal authority of Indonesia. But it is complex because the micro SMEs often do not have a quality management system into place. So the problem is not really necessarily the halal issue, but it's the quality system. So halal needs to exist with quality at the same time. So to bring all the micro SMEs on board by October 2024 is a mammoth task. And that will, I think, be the biggest challenge, is for this new Law 33 regulation to bring those micro SMBs on board and protect the integrity of Halal Indonesia, in particular for those micro SMEs. We need to keep the standard high, because otherwise big companies will not source from those micro SMEs if they are self-declared and the halal integrity not properly controlled. So I think that will be the biggest challenge for Halal Indonesia, and that mandatory law is to get those SMEs and micro SMEs on board. There's also international standards being developed, OIC SMIC. In Turkey, they have developed several standards in food, cosmetics, pharmaceutical, also packaging they are working on. I'm part of OIC SMIC Technical Committee 10 in charge of halal supply chain. We have 3 standards already, 3 modules already in TC10, which is transportation, warehousing, and retail. And currently we're working on a new module for the port. So these are standards in development, and these are also being promoted to be used also by other countries. So it's important, especially when halal moves to a supply chain and value chain, is that we have further appreciation of international standards, using international standards, because when halal moves to a supply chain and there are all different requirements, interpretation by different countries, it's very difficult to make an end-to-end halal supply chain based on a common guidelines. So we need to have consensus on certain standards, and in particular supply chain is important. So the use of the international standards will be important for the industry to simplify halal further. So we also certainly do recommend also Indonesia to adopt also the OIC SMIC standards, which allows them also to further strengthen the position of Halal Indonesia globally. So what are important steps on halal certification? So these are based on my experience with multinationals working on the halal certification. What's the first step? So first of all is the halal strategy. In a halal strategy, you work first of all on operational strategy, how you're going to organize it. Halal branding and marketing, so how do you communicate the halal status to the consumer, and the halal certification strategy. So which halal certificate are we using, or combination of halal certificates, and it gives the best market coverage with the halal certificate. And then finally also the halal policy and halal policy statement. So similar like in quality statement, you are establishing an halal policy statement. Then what we always do is a zero-based assessment. So we assess the materials. So you need to have a list of which ingredients does the products have, certificate of analysis, so to understand if with lab reports if the products are halal, if there are no issues there. Red items management is also important to understand with which ingredients, materials do we have an issue. We don't have the certificate, not enough information, or are non-halal, so it need to be replaced. We call that red item management. And assess the actual operations, so to look at the manufacturing, the equipment use, and also cleaning materials used to operate, to make sure it's all Sharia compliant. Step 3 is the development of the halal assurance system documents in accordance to the requirements of the halal certification body. So the organization designs or the setting up of the halal management team. Also looking at also the training, of course, elements of facility design specifications. So there are certain requirements on the production or logistics operation, and then the halal assurance documentation. In the implementation, we talk about the training of staff and training of the halal management team, preparations for halal operation, we might certain labels or changes in the production required, application with the halal certification bodies, and then audits. With LBB International, my company, we do also pre-audits, so we can help the company from strategy, zero-based assessment, documentation development, until implementation, until the certification by the halal certification body. So this can take 1 year for companies in a simple scenario, but can also take multiple years with more complex halal certification programs for multinationals. So when we're organizing halal, so what is the responsibility for inside the company? So top management is in charge of developing the halal certification strategy. So it's part of top management, and also the halal policy is also part decision by top management. Board risk committee and risk management is in charge of the halal certifications decision, because they are in charge of serving certain OSC countries, certain Muslim markets. Therefore, it's important for risk management point of view to get halal certified, or it is a part of license to operate. It is a requirement to be halal certified if you want to be serving the Indonesian market from October 2024. Halal risk reporting is also important part for board and risk management, is to understand where are my halal risk in the supply chain. Marketing is in charge of the decision, do we show the halal logo? Yes or no? Sometimes it's also required by law. In a lot of cases it's not. And then how to brand halal in the marketing and sales promotion. So that's a marketing decision. Then we have the internal halal committee, halal management team, and they are in charge of the halal assurance implementation. What is a big mistake for companies to regard halal a responsibility for the halal management team, internal halal committee? That's not true. So the responsibility of halal is not only with the halal management team, it has a responsibility of top management, and therefore should have also KPIs for top management on halal. It is a component in for boards risk management. So in the LBB we make halal risk reports also for companies to understand what are the risks from a halal point of view. Marketing has also an important role in the halal decision making. So halal is not only a responsibility for the halal management team, it has a responsibility for many more components in the organization. To share some of my experiences on halal. So we were very privileged to assist a multinational in cosmetics to help them to get certified. There was a multinational not familiar with halal, and what they came to us said, okay, how should we get halal certified, and what is the right approach to halal? So in the halal strategy, we determined to them to only use one halal standard to simplify halal for the multinational and simplify procurement of ingredients and additives. And we have chosen for the Indonesian halal certification, halal standard, because it gave optimal market access for that multinational, and also had the best requirements also for the use of halal ingredients. So that was a second important decision to go for Indonesia's halal certificate. When you want to get halal certified, it's important to get information from your suppliers. Although it was a multinational, you would say they're very powerful in getting information from suppliers that are dependent on that multinational. What we found out, it was a big challenge to get the information from those suppliers. It took a lot of time, and we had to really go up to the highest level of the procurement organization to get in contact with suppliers. And we also had to say goodbye to some suppliers that were not able to facilitate also had their documentation in time. We need to make sure that the materials are halal and they are allowed to be used in halal certified products. And that needs certain documentation like certificate of analysis for certain products, a halal certificate, which is recognized. And that is the main critical path, so that information from suppliers is on the critical path of any halal certification. Delays in this area will result in delay in the certification. When we are dealing with the certification of cosmetics, we are dealing with multiple brands. One brand was also produced in multiple plants in multiple different countries. So we talked about parallel certification of production plants that are producing the same brand. So in that case, we had a cosmetic, a shampoo that was produced in Indonesia, Thailand, and Vietnam. So one brand. So we had to certify those 3 countries and get it certified first before we are allowed to carry the halal logo on that brand, because certification is per brand. In every cosmetic and home care product, there's also a smell, which is a perfume. So we also had to do parallel certification next to the production plants, the end product, also the certification of perfume plants. So that was parallel certification of end product, consumer products, and parallel certification also of the perfume plant, which is an ingredient to the cosmetic brand. We also had the challenge on name. So the perfume plant, perfume is very complex. Certain perfumes are designed by other perfume designers and other organizations. So sometimes even a brand owner doesn't know what is inside the perfume. It's a kind of secret. So we also had to get in touch with the perfume designer, and the halal authority needed to visit that designer of that perfume in order to explore what are the components of the perfume. So that was a kind of trade secret. So the halal certification body had to understand what is in there in order to approve the use of ingredients in that perfume. Also, the names of perfumes were created in a perfume plant, but the consideration could be very diverse of giving it a name. And there were no guidelines for that from a halal perspective. So we had, for example, names on Miss Piggy or red wine or champagne. So we had names which were related to products or items that were non-halal, like the pig or beer or wine or a sexy lady. So these were names which had to be changed, and changing a name is not simple, go to the computer and then change the name. It's very problematic. So also you need to give guidance to those companies on naming the products, because a halal certification body will not be able to certify an ingredient with a name which is related to something non-halal or haram. So although the components have nothing to do with that. Also, the logistics service provider was doing the regional distribution or the national distribution in Indonesia. Also, we wanted to be halal certified. The logistics operator was not the company itself, it was given to a logistics operator. That operator was not halal certified. So we wanted that operator to be halal certified or needed to be replaced. So these are big decisions which have implications for the operation. So we gave the option to logistics service provider, get halal certified or get out. So you choose to get halal certified. So this gives some insight in some complexities you can have when we talk about halal certification for big organization, and that's a multi-year program, goes in phases, phasing by brands over multiple locations all over the world. So when we talk about the phasing of halal brands, what are some important considerations to decide what to do first, what to do later? So first Muslim countries, then non-Muslim countries, volume, high volume mass market first versus low volume specialized brands later, which are lower volumes. Animal-based, non-animal based is easier to get halal certified versus if there are any animal-based ingredient there. Food has a higher priority than non-food items. And you do first start with the simple products versus the more complex products later. You prefer to do single production site first versus multiple production sites later. So this gives some basic guidelines I've used in our advisory to help companies in the certification of complex scenarios. So some final thoughts on halal standards and certification. And so what we see is that the halal industry is moving away from a product approach to a halal supply chain approach. So it's important to, as a company, to understand what are the emerging requirements and address them early, because if you're a large company, it takes time to implement the changes in your business supply chain and value chain. You need to take time for that. Second point is based on my experience in halal certification. Halal regulations are extremely complex. We have a changing of list of which halal certification bodies are recognized. We have new fatwas by the halal certification bodies, new updated standards, new requirements by the halal certification body. So what we need to do is to make halal as simple as possible. So preferably use one certification body instead of 2 or 3, because the complexity increases exponentially when you're dealing with multiple halal certification bodies. And some multinationals, like in food, like Nestle, they're dealing with probably 10 or 15 halal certification bodies worldwide, which is madness. It becomes very complex. Also, it's important to develop the right halal certification strategy, and I think that might be the biggest value and most important decision, I think, to make with any halal certification program. And that's why I think the use of and also the value of advisors in that area will be important to have an understanding of the global requirements and global scenarios. Let's move on to the topic of the halal supply chain and value chain. As halal is moving towards the supply chain and value chain, halal supply chain management needs to be addressed. And also, according to the Indonesian regulation, by October 2024, halal needs to be addressed throughout the supply chain. I was very privileged to be one of the pioneers on research on halal supply chain management. So for the students and lecturers listening, you might be familiar with some of my academic papers on halal supply chain. How do I define halal supply chain management? Is that is a management of a halal network with the goal of extending halal integrity from source to the point of consumer purchase. So a question often gets, how is halal supply chain management then different from a conventional supply chain? So first of all, halal needs to be segregated from non-halal. It's already in the HAS 23000 standard. Secondly, halal needs to be properly communicated also in the supply chain, because if you do not communicate the halal status, you cannot expect that halal is properly segregated. So the same like halal and tayyib comes together, the same in halal supply chain. Segregation can only come together when you properly communicate it. So segregation and communication are part of two sides of one coin. When we talk about halal supply chain management, segregation doesn't exist if you don't communicate it on trade documents, on labels, and in IT systems. In my research, I established the foundation of halal supply chain management based on 3 components. So cross-contamination is the first component. So there should not be contact with the halal and the haram, the forbidden, non-halal. Risk of contamination is an important component in halal supply chain, and perception management. So cross-contamination you can avoid by proper packaging. Risk of contamination you can avoid by properly addressing, giving guidelines regarding physical segregation and communication of trade documents. Halal only, for example, in transportation, or halal only on pallets and load carriers. So those decisions are addressing risk of contamination. Perception is also an important component, which is shaped by the Islamic school of thought, religious rulings, and also local customs. So there are differences in perception between Indonesia and Malaysia, Indonesia and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So Shafi'i school of thought practice surtu, ritual cleansing, whereas in the Middle East, they don't practice ritual cleansing. So these have implications how you organize. The Brunei doesn't want their transportation and storage to be mixed with meat, which is halal slaughtered, not according to the Brunei requirements. So they want to have segregation from other halal products which did not follow the Brunei standards regarding hand slaughter and non-stunning. So this have implications also on your supply chain. In my research, I established 2 levels. So when you're dealing with Muslim majority countries, you have to address all 3. When you're dealing with non-Muslim countries, you only have to address the first 2 components, and direct contact with haram and risk of contamination. You have kind of 2 levels of organizing the supply chain. And there's rationale behind it, because in non-OIC countries, non-Muslim majority countries, we see that halal is not recognized. And so the issue of segregation becomes, and halal only becomes very problematic in non-OIC countries where we cannot recognize the halal clearly by proper labeling. So there are certain leniencies if you're dealing with the exports to non-Muslim countries. From a helicopter level, there are these are the key requirements which I've developed in my research. So if you are dealing with Muslim majority countries, it's halal only in transport and also storage. If you're exporting to non-Muslim countries like to Europe, there are certain leniencies depending on the product characteristics. So depending on if it's bulk products, like liquid bulk, like palm oil sending, it is halal only still, or grains, or when it is unitized, like in bags for coffee, processed coffee, or packed like consumer products, then we are differentiating between dry and cool chain. For dry, there are more or less no requirements, only halal only on a pallet or load carrier, but you can also have non-halal in the other parts of the container or transport. For cool chain, it's not allowed to have at the same storage or transportation mixing with severe najis, so products that containing porcine. So that is not allowed, but products containing alcohol, for example, is still allowed, medium najis. So this is at high level the scenarios when we're talking about how to organize supply chain to a Muslim majority country or a non-Muslim country. So these are the basic guidelines. So that's our supply chain guidelines. When we're moving to the halal value chain, it becomes much more complex. So we also talk about Islamic finance, takaful, HR, looking at talent management, training of staff, halal requirements regarding human resource, sustainability, R&D, also from an Islamic point of view, procurement, and then the conventional supply chain below. Risk and reputation management, I also added in here, as well as zakat. So these are importance of an halal value chain. So this is far more complex than just looking at halal product certification or just looking at a supply chain, because when you talk about the halal value chain, you're also looking at your partners. So we have to make sure that there's an alignment between the halal value chain of a brand owner and your supply chain partners. And when you see this, then it becomes really complex to organize. So halal supply chain is complex, and halal value chain and halal value network is far more complex to make it sure that is aligned in meeting the requirements of the Muslim consumer. This is still future music, but will be very important to be able to work on this as a brand owner for the coming 10 years, I believe. We are running a little bit out of time, so I won't show this case study. So we have been covering already a few topics: halal market alignment, halal certification, and also the halal supply chain and value chain. So in the halal supply chain and value chain, we see the importance of alignment. We have shared the halal market alignment based on the consumer needs and wants, evolution of halal. We also see here the requirements for the requirements of the markets you're serving. So if I'm serving Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, we have to make sure that the halal supply chain meets the requirements of that destination market. So the alignment is extremely important in the halal supply chain and value chain. I just want to take a quick break of 5 minutes before we move into the second part of the lecture on the halal ecosystems and halal risk and reputation management. Yes, so 5-minute break, and then we continue on halal ecosystems and halal risk and reputation management. Thank you. I'm back. You can hear me, Rihanna?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right. So let's start with the second part of the lecture. So I will talk another half hour, I think, about the next part, so halal ecosystems and halal risk and reputation management, and then we're going to go to Q&A. Yeah. All right, so I would like to share with you more on halal ecosystem. So when we talk about halal ecosystems, it's very important, because if you're designing, if you need to address the halal supply chain and value chain, you need to have an environment which supports you in moving towards a halal supply chain and value chain, which is far more complex. So I've been working on research on halal clusters, and I published back in 2015 with the Journal of Islamic Marketing as part of Emerald. So I've been working on the model, a halal cluster, to design halal ecosystem. And in the middle, you see the halal supply chain. Then you have also a supporting halal integrity network, which covers halal logistics and halal network to link different halal ecosystems together. And also there's an important role of the halal certification body in here. Yeah? Then we have government, an important enabler. So the government plays a role to support, accredit the halal certification body, but also gives, for example, incentives to incentivize halal industries to move to that cluster. So in Malaysia, for example, the government gives 10 years tax-free holidays. So if you are moving into a halal cluster, halal park. Halal trade is important, so to connect you as a company to farming, to imports from overseas countries, and also exports to attractive markets. Islamic finance is also important, and if you want to move to a halal value chain, Islamic finance is critical. So it's important that those services are there, finance, takaful, and so on. But also like letter of credit are important, and fire insurance. Not always a Sharia compliant alternative is available. So these are important components. Also education and research, and also your relationship with Muslim communities. So in other words, when we talk about a halal ecosystem, it's far more than just a physical location. You need to have a lot of relationships that come together in a halal ecosystem. Over the past 2 years, I've conducted a global halal ecosystem study, understanding what are the requirements and the halal maturity of countries, OSCE countries in the world, and what are the next steps. And what I foresee is that there will be very important for countries to look at embracing halal ecosystem and developing halal ecosystems in those countries. In 2020, I published in the ICR journal, which is an Islamic journal in Malaysia. You can also find that on the internet. You can download this for free, this article. I published a paper on the halal parks. So Malaysia started more than 10 years ago already with halal parks. Indonesia, over the past 3 years, they've started with halal parks. Modern Halal Valley was the first and also the largest halal park in Indonesia. More on that later. So traditionally, the halal parks were developed as industrial zones for halal industries. There might have some incentives by the government, and there might have been some support to get the company halal certified. They call it Halal Park 1.0. There have been success stories in Malaysia. Often those halal parks were located next to a seaport, an airport, a good logistic location. But we also have seen some halal parks that were less successful. Yeah. So I've been recommending to not just to create a halal industrial park for just halal industries, but also to create a halal ecosystem. And how you want to do that, to add a few more components in there. So to establish a halal cluster organization, to develop the halal cluster, those linkages to other countries, to farmers, to have farm programs, to have programs with SMEs is important. Also to address halal supply chain and technologies in there. So that there's also tracking and tracing, halal logistics services available at that halal park. Address sustainability as well, and also to bring in a component of Islamic finance and also wakaf. Wakaf can also be very much used to create a building for SMEs or to give training to SMEs. So we need to think at creating a more comprehensive halal ecosystem and not just create industrial parks for halal industries. That's not good enough. We need to help halal industries to move to level 3, the halal supply chain, and level 4, the halal value chain. And those halal parks will be very instrumental to that. So there are also opportunities to create a halal standard, I think, for halal parks, to give them more guidance. In my work, also in my latest book on which I've been writing, halal business management, I talk about the concept of economies of change. So a lot of you are aware of economies of scale, to become as big as possible, economies of scope, to be big in certain functionalities. We need to look at connecting to those industries that also make sense from a sustainability point of view. So, for example, the coffee dust after making the coffee, there's only that coffee dust left after putting the water through that is normally discarded of. Did you know that the mushrooms thrive very well on used coffee grounds? So much better than other medium. The wastage of the mushroom production can be used as an ingredient to animal feed. So by linking the coffee chain to the mushroom chain and the animal feed chain, you can create much more value and much more impact on sustainability. So we need to have a different look at how we organize supply chains in the future. And halal ecosystem should look at this to address sustainability effectively. I've been very privileged to work in Indonesia on the modern halal valley development. This is located in Banten, Cikande, 500 hectares in size, and there's the ability to increase to 700 hectares. So here we built this concept based on the Halal Park 2.0, where we have room for SMEs, food production, non-food production, logistics zone on the top. In the middle, we also see a commercial zone where we have space for universities, R&D, the halal authorities, and also trading. We also have halal certified water by Majelis Ulama Indonesia. So this is a comprehensive development we worked on. So Modern Halal Valley is a new generation of halal parks, providing a complete halal ecosystem to brand owners. We have established also programs for SMEs and also farmers to create those synergy advantages for brand owners to be located in Modern Halal Valley. What we also have done is that we created a halal cluster network initiative in order to link clusters together locally, but also with other halal clusters all over the world. So we've signed agreements with halal parks in Spain, halal zone in Spain, also in Malaysia, and even also Taiwan. And we are further exploring new agreements as well with other countries. And we do this to create a synergy advantages. Also looking at how we can better support the halal supply chains of brand owners, and also to promote industries in those halal parks, which is important for SMEs and any industries based there, and having access also to halal industries and help them as well as on R&D. So these are, I think, important initiatives which we have started and are further implementing over the years to come. So halal ecosystem, I think, will be important for the coming years, and halal parks are an important vehicle to be established. And Indonesia is making very good progress on that side, and I'm happy to see that. And this will also be, I think, developed in other Muslim majority countries, as well as non-Muslim countries like Taiwan and Spain. They have also created initiatives over there. We still have some time left, so let me focus on the last topic before we go into Q&A. I just wanted to share with you a little bit on halal risk and reputation management, as it is also an important component for when you're moving towards a halal supply chain and value chain. When we talk about the brand owner, everything that the brand owner does has impact on its corporate halal reputation. So everything the brand owner does, what they communicate, how they organize the organization, the brand, the production, the structure, that all has impact on their reputation. And it is important to measure that. The brand owner doesn't work alone. He's working with suppliers, he's working with customers, with logistics service providers, distributors and traders and so on. So the way the brand owner organizes has implications for their supply chain. The supply chain has implications on the supply chain halal integrity, because the halal integrity is a function of the entire supply chain. Also, it's important to measure the halal integrity performance. And that's often not done. So you need to develop key performance indicators that measure the corporate halal reputation, as well as the halal supply chain integrity. And I've been working on my research over the past years. So halal risk management is an important responsibility of a company. So it starts with the halal certification decision, so for which products and markets is halal certification required. Secondly, monitoring of halal risks are important. So you need to define key performance indicators, such as the halal reputation index and license to operate rating, which I've been working on. But also you can have halal risk reports, management reports from a halal perspective. Also important in halal risk management is halal issue and crisis management. So you need to also establish manuals for halal crisis. So a lot of companies have crisis manuals, but they not always have a section on halal, or they just mention it. And it's very dangerous when you're using a conventional crisis manual, a food safety issue, and use it for a halal issue, which requires different responses and different communication. And that I've seen as a big gap with a lot of companies that are active in Muslim majority countries. So halal reputation is something which should be on the radar screen for companies. So what we have seen over the past years in Malaysia, we had the Cadbury issue. Indonesia, you also had other halal scandals and halal issues, where we have seen that the Muslim consumer prefers a zero risk halal environment, and it's very easy to go to the streets to have boycotts. So it doesn't matter anymore if it's true or not, if it's a hype or a false message. When it goes viral on the internet, it is very damaging. So that is an issue today in the halal industry. When you're working, there's one big problem, is that a lot of brand owners, the way they organize themselves. So what they do, they're doing coupling of brands and also practice co-branding. So what are those things? So coupling of halal brands is that you produce multiple brands in the same factory, for example. So when there's one issue with one brand, it also will have implications for the other brands. So they are kind of infected. We also see the issue of co-branding, where certain brands are co-branded together. So when you're using certain ingredients you're promoting on your product, or when you have at your outlet, like in a picture here, McDonald's always comes together with Coca-Cola. So if there's an issue with Coca-Cola, it will also impact on McDonald's, although there might not be any rationale to be impacted. So that is a risk also in halal reputation management. In my work, so over the past 5 years, I spent a lot of my time on halal risk and reputation management. It's also written in my book. And How I define a halal reputation is a collective representation of a firm's past action and halal performance and the future ability to meet halal requirements. So it is a perspective on how was I over the past period, but also a future perspective. How good am I at protecting the halal integrity in the years to come? I've created a halal reputation index, which is based on 4 important components: halal authenticity, trustworthiness of halal certification body, messages by company and supply chain partners, and messages by external stakeholders. So these are the key 4 drivers that will determine your halal reputation. So halal authenticity is based on the halal strategy of the company, the internal alignment within the organization, and external alignment with the supply chain partners, and also the level of halal maturity. Am I at stage 2, halal product, or stage 3, halal supply chain, already working on stage 4, the halal value chain? The trustworthiness of halal certification bodies, by which halal certification body am I halal certified? So if I'm certified by the Indonesian halal certification body, or Halal Marco in the Netherlands, which he just founded up this afternoon. So there's a difference. So if you are certified by Halal Indonesia, you will have top score as compared to a halal certification body which is not accredited and doesn't have even a halal standard, is not recognized by anybody. Yeah? Messages by company and supply chain are important. So what do I communicate and what do my distributors communicate in the market? Is there's a halal, in case there is a halal issue, and so on. So that's an important aspect. And also messages by the external stakeholders. So what can we find out on the internet, on Facebook, on Google, on Twitter, when I put the brand owner's name and halal? Do I get positive or negative comments on that? What is the track record of the company? Have to be in a halal issue. If there was a halal issue, how was the impact, or how was it being solved? So all those areas will drive into the halal reputation index, which we have created an algorithm which we're using to measure the halal reputation index for companies. We can also relate the halal reputation index to the market requirements of certain countries. So we get a license to operate for Indonesia, for Malaysia, for Saudi Arabia, for Dubai, UAE. So then you relate your halal reputation index to what are the emerging requirements or current market requirements for certain markets. Important KPIs. So if you are serving OIC countries, to measure your KPIs and to put targets there as well. You're running out of time. I will just would like to finish off on halal risk control. So next to your halal assurance system, you need to build more components to protect the halal integrity and protect your corporate reputation. So you need to establish proper protocols for your halal supply chain. Secondly, you need, in order to address a proper response management and protecting your reputation, you also need to address halal issue management and halal crisis management. So you have to either create a dedicated halal crisis manual or a really solid section in your crisis management on halal, because you cannot address a halal issue the same as a contamination issue. They need to have different response and different communication. Halal needs to have key performance indicators. Therefore, a halal risk report could be of value to brand owners to measure structurally the corporate halal reputation and halal issues, the halal integrity of their supply chain. And this is something we have been doing for our multinationals, to create a halal risk report, to do an assessment of their halal supply chain, measure key performance indicators in halal risk and reputation performance, and also provide an action plan to bring the company to the next level of halal maturity and improve the robustness and resilience of halal supply chains and value chains. So this was my lecture. I shot off, I think, took a lot of time to share this. I think this is important, and look forward to spend some time with you the coming half hour on some questions you have. So here are my contact details, and if you're interested in my book, you can also buy my book in Indonesia, also online. So this was my lecture. Thank you very much, and I will look forward for your discussion. I will pass it over to Ms. Rehana. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Prof. Tieman, for the great material and perspective about halal market alignment, standards and certification, supply chain, and also value chain, the halal ecosystems, and also the last one, the halal risk and reputation management. Thank you so much, sir. And hopefully we can get it very well. And for all participants, please turn on your camera so we can know that you guys are listening well. So after this, we will open the question and answer session. And for those who have certain questions, please raise your hand, or you can write it in the chat box. Okay? Anyone? Okay, we have Rizky here. Hello, Rizky.
Halo Rehana.
Okay.
Thank you Rehana. Thank you very much Mr. Marco Tieman for your visit and presentation to the Syariah Economic Department. My name is Muhammad Rizky Syahputra. What are the challenges in ensuring the halal products in non-Muslim countries? Maybe that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Mohammed, for your question. Yeah, so non-Muslim countries have few challenges. So like in Europe, there are sensitivities regarding the halal logo. So you have there some Islamophobia, as they call it, where people associate a halal logo with funding of terrorism, inhumane slaughter of animals. So that is an issue. So a lot of brand owners that have been exporting halal products to Europe and also America, they have not showed the halal logo on products. And it is, I think, has been a shame. So that one issue is communicating halal in countries that are a little bit aggressive against the halal products. So there's a wrong perception in non-OSCE countries in Europe and America regarding halal related, and therefore creating issues on sharing the halal status on products. So that is one issue. I've been recommending some of my academic papers on halal branding halal, and also in my book, that you, instead of showing the halal logo in certain Western countries, to communicate the halal in a different way by halal coding, or maybe that if you scan QR code that you have then halal information. It's quite problematic because Muslims, there are many Muslims in the West, so they also would like to understand if the product is halal or not. So it's important to share the halal stage of the product, but if the halal logo is not possible, you need to share it in a different way to communicate this to the Muslim consumer. So that is one challenge. So certain countries are maybe not very positive on the halal logo. The second challenge is also you have to recognize that when halal goes to a supply chain and value chain, it becomes more complex, halal, and so you have to appreciate that in non-Muslim countries that halal is not easily identifiable because of the reason I just shared with you. So you need to build in certain leniencies. The availability of halal is more important than to make the supply chain as holy as possible, to say it in that perspective. So you have to understand that there are complexities in non-Muslim countries, and that you cannot have the same strict requirements in non-Muslim countries as in Muslim countries. The same with the internal halal committee. If you want to set up and get certified in Europe or other non-Muslim country and set up a company there getting halal certified, you cannot have all Muslims in that internal halal committee. You know, so it might be a driver, a cleaner might be a Muslim, but not at senior position. So we need to make sure that those allowances are there, that non-Muslims are also taking senior positions on halal, and we have to respect that. It's important that it should be educated and trained, of course, but those are some complexities we have. And also, sometimes the Indonesian regulations also do not understand the complexity of halal and the complexity of the limited availability of Muslims in an organization to post key positions in the internal halal committee. That's not always possible to put a Muslim there. So that's also an important complexity of halal in non-Muslim countries. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do you get it, Rizky? About the challenges in non-Muslim countries, okay? All right. Thank you, sir. So we can move to the next question. Before I read the question, sorry, the chat box, anyone? Okay, we have Fatimah Wendy here. Okay, there you go.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Rehana. Thank you, Ms. Prof. Marco Tieman. My name is Fatima from Syariah Economic. I see on the internet that there are many consultants who provide halal certification service, one of which the certivalue.com for countries where there is no halal regulation, such as Timor-Leste. My question is whether the halal certification is verified correctly, can it be used? And the certificate is based on the law of which country? Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Ms. Fatima. Yes, what I shared with you, halal is complex, and I will be speaking next week in a seminar to halal industries in Europe, where they have questions on which halal certificates should I use. And this is a big problem. For Indonesia, it's pretty easy. There's only one halal certification body and one system, the HAS 23000. But that question is not that straightforward in non-Muslim countries. So the starting point is always what are your business objectives? So which markets I want to serve, and that will be the starting point on which halal certification body or combination of halal certification bodies should I use. So the starting point is which markets do I serve, and what does it mean for my halal system. So if I'm selling to Brunei, as Brunei is my export market, I cannot slaughter my chicken according to what is allowed in Indonesia, like machine slaughter and stunning. So Brunei will not accept that. So you need to address what are the requirements in my destination country. So they should be at least the same or higher as the destination country. Yeah, so that's an important requirement. So that will determine your destination country. What are the requirements of your halal certification body, your halal certification standard, and therefore your halal certification body. My advice always to minimize the number of halal certification bodies, because the more you're going to use, the nightmare it will be for purchasing. So my business class, I have a section on procurement by itself. We talk the whole time about procurement. So procurement gets all the problems. So if you decide to be certified by 2 or 3 bodies, you need to look at which halal certification bodies are recognized by body A, which bodies are recognized by the second body, and which halal certification bodies are recognized by the third body. And they all should have overlap. Only those certificates are applicable to your operation. So it becomes very complex when you use multiple. So number one is looking at your destination markets. So what are your export goals? Which countries do you serve? Number 2 is how can I simplify my halal system by preferably some as minimal certification bodies as possible. And for choosing the right one, if I'm Europe, then I always look at, okay, we have maybe 5 big halal certification bodies in the Netherlands. And then I look at those, okay, are they recognized by BPIPH? Are they recognized by JAKIM? Are they recognized by United Arab Emirates? So Indonesia, Malaysia, United Arab Emirates are the countries which have list of halal certification bodies that are recognized. So those are, I think, some of the key countries I would look at. So Malaysia, UAE, and Indonesia. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Fatima, for the question, and also thank you for Prof. Tieman for the answer. Let's move to the next question. Okay, we got Ismail here.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, it's clear.
Right. First of all, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon in Indonesia, Mr. Tieman. And my name is Ismail Saka Arafi. I'm from School of Business of LBB University. First of all, I would like to appreciate Mr. Tieman for a wonderful presentation and also a great insight. My question is in the current world for COVID-19 Russo-Ukraine war. My question is, what kind of strategy that should be implemented to mitigate a current world crisis that could hinder and mitigate the supply chain in halal industry across the world? And also the follow-up question regarding the Western countries and regarding the misconception between Islamophobia and also the halal industry. My question is, how do we, should the Islamic country or Muslim countries spread awareness to especially the Western countries to give the awareness regarding the Islam halal to not only the people inside the Western country, but also to policy makers in Western countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Ismail, for your kind question. So first of all, you address the supply chain breakdowns. You're spot on. So there are supply chain breakdowns because of the crisis, the war in the Ukraine, with Russia, and I think the whole West with Russia. It's an ugly thing, and I'm very worried about it, and myself. Secondly, we have also had the green program of climate change program, the Green Deal in Europe, where farming is being reduced. I've been presenting at a conference over the past years, also online, and I shared the alarm button, and I wrote an article, also alarming article in the Halal Focus. You might read it there about the issues of the breakdown of global supply chains, and that is very urgent. I shared with you the OIC is dependent on imports from non-Muslim countries. During COVID period, we in Holland, we weren't allowed to harvest the carrots from the land. So we didn't send them to Africa. We are a big export to Africa. People died in Africa from hunger because we couldn't send them the carrots during COVID. We were not able to harvest. So that system is broken. We should not be dependent on supplies from non-OIC countries. We have to create comprehensive production clusters. So Pak Jokowi, the president of Indonesia, he's right if we say that we shouldn't send just raw materials overseas, and no, value adding should be done in Indonesia. Countries should be self-sufficient, right? It's an obligation for Muslims to consume halal. It's also an obligation to produce halal. And that awareness should be there. You have beautiful, fertile soil next to palm oil. Palm oil is a nice crop, but you cannot eat palm oil, right? You can fry in it, but you need more to survive. So Indonesia should go beyond palm oil. It should produce far more food products and become one of the largest halal exporters in the world, a real halal production hub. You have the people, you have the land, you have the fertile soil. There's no excuse, right? You have entrepreneurs. So make those halal ingredients, additives, make those end products. So this is an alarm call and an opportunity for business people. You're in a business faculty, you know, this is opportunity for you. So hopefully in a few years, I can meet you and we have a business discussion, and you will be the big food multinational bringing halal to the world. That is your opportunity there. I've shared with you some opportunities, and look at that. The second thing you addressed was awareness. Yes, there's a lot of misconception, and I've been trying myself to get in contact with the Dutch and European government to tell them, because European government, they want to separate state with church. They don't want to have any dealings with religion. So I talked to them and said, halal has nothing to do with religion. It's purely labeling law, right? In Holland, in Europe, if I put a logo on organic or fair trade, and it is not organic or not fair trade, I lose my business license in Europe. If I put a halal logo on it or a kosher logo on it, and it is not halal or kosher, nobody goes after me in Europe. Why is that so, right? So instead of taking it from the religious route, it should be, halal should be protected from the labeling law route. Yeah? Because religion is sensitive in Europe, so the government doesn't want to do anything religion, but I still recommend it to them to create a European halal standard, to do accreditation of halal certification bodies in Europe. But it's a long road, I'm afraid, but try to do the labeling road. But awareness is important. So one of my recommendations I made I wrote one article, Halal Europe. You can read it in my Google profile. You can download it for free. So what I also recommended is that the Indonesian Halal Authority sets up an office in Europe, also to be closer to the halal certification bodies and to give also a better understanding of halal. So one of my recommendations is to have a BPPH or Majelis Ulama Indonesia had to set up an office, maybe in Holland or another country. But it might be another important step to bring positive news about halal to the world, and that's sometimes missing here in Europe. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ismail, and also thank you for Prof. Tieman for the great answer. I think we could have one more question. Anyone?
So we have on the side, right?
Okay, we have Akmal here.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank you, Mr. Tieman, for the insightful lecture. And I would like to ask, in your opinion, what would be the future of the global halal industry? Because is it something what would be the end goal of it? Is it something that would be seen as the norm way of things, or it would be just make halal product more accessible, especially to the Muslims and to the Muslims, especially around the world? And my second question is, as a student, as a university student, what can we do to help to develop the global halal industry? Because as you say before, this is a big thing, and this is quite a long journey ahead. And yeah, in your opinion, what can we do to help support to develop global halal industry? I think that's both of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Akmal. Great question. Yeah, so what's the future of the halal industry? So the halal industry started with meat, then it went to foods, and then cosmetics, pharmaceuticals. The pharmaceuticals are a long journey. So you see halal's moving to other industries. So halal industry becomes very big, to the hotel, hospital, tourism. So you see that halal goes to products, it goes to services. Very big. The problem I've seen is that the bottleneck is there's a lack of halal ingredients and additives, because a lot of ingredients and additives are produced in the West, and that's an issue. So halal is expanding fast. The problem is not that the halal market is so big. The issue is not the bottleneck, is not the demand side. The bottleneck is the supply side. And so where you can do something is to solve problems. And where the problems is not the big demand. The problem is the supply side. So you, as a student, as an entrepreneur, can look at solving problems. So if you're solving the ingredients and additives, that is an opportunity. Also, an opportunity is to create a new brand in Indonesia to bring it to the world. Like Indo food. I mean, we only know for noodles here in the West. So if you go to a supermarket, you might find Indo noodle as one pack. But there are more opportunities, right, than just selling noodles in Europe. We need many more products from Indonesia. So I think there's an opportunity in solving problems, and they're mainly at the supply side. And one of the vehicles I see important is to create those halal parks in Indonesia, to put halal industries together, create incentives by the Indonesian government to attract industries to come to Indonesia, create incentives for halal industries, but also for service providers. And currently still the Indonesia regulation is very complex for services, so not really attractive as a service operator to come to Indonesia, because your paid up capital is massive. For if there's any foreign percentage as a company, your paid up capital is $700,000, I think. So a lot of companies in the service industry do not find Indonesia attractive to be located to because of the high paid up capital requirements. So there's a lot of bureaucracy still involved in Indonesia as compared to Malaysia. So in Malaysia, I can set up a company for $1 paid up capital. In Indonesia, you have to be $700,000. Yeah, so Indonesia has to create incentives for halal industries and address bureaucracy, that it also for service industries are important, because LBB International, we do a lot of advisory. We also create innovation. So experts, companies like ourselves are also important to be part of the halal ecosystem in Indonesia. But for me, it's very difficult to set up a company. I don't have $700,000 in my pocket to set up a company in Indonesia. So you have to make it attractive also to attract foreign companies to enter Indonesia as well. I think that is one opportunity for Indonesia to create also expert companies in the halal ecosystem in Indonesia as well. And next to Indonesian companies, it's not the case that the foreign companies will take away the business from Indonesia, but it is it's good to have Indonesian companies in other parts of the world and expert companies also, foreign expert companies also in the Indonesian halal ecosystem as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Akmal, and thank you so much, Prof. Tieman, for the answer. Okay, I'm sorry. Due to the limited time, we have to close this question and answer session. So I think before we end this session, do you have any closing statement, Prof. Tieman?
Yeah, thank you, Rehana. It was a great pleasure to have so many students online. I think I saw when we started 180 students as participants. So I'm really greatly honored. Yes, halal is an important market, is an important industry, and I think also the IPB lecturers can do a lot of work in terms of research. Also, I think the graduates from IPB University have a big opportunity. I think the opportunity is there to make impact in the halal industry. That can be in production, can be in services, can be in bringing halal Indonesia to the world, can be in research. So it's good to realize that Indonesia has a lot of advantages, and you're born in Indonesia. You have no idea how lucky you are. So that is important to recognize. The grass always greener on the other side. That's why I've decided to live in Asia instead of Europe. So I've recognized the strength of Indonesia. So take that opportunity. Indonesia, I think the time is now to address. Halal becomes more complex. So we need to to simplify this for industries. And therefore, I think the halal ecosystem development will be important for Indonesia. And also halal risk and reputation management will be important, to protect the corporate reputation of companies, and elevate halal by moving it, just instead of moving it into a department, the halal management team, or into the halal committee. Halal needs to be elevated to boardroom level. There should be key performance indicators at management level, and not just be halal responsibility for the internal halal committee, the halal management team. No, halal is a top management responsibility. Marketing is an important player in here. Production, of course, procurement, and it reaches to a lot of divisions in a company, and certainly top management. If you want to know more about halal business management, go to my website, halalbusinessmanagement.com. Also more information on my book. I've published quite a lot as well, and also together with IPB, with Dr. Iqbal and team. Very privileged to do some joint research together. So also look at the academic papers I've written, and also written together with IPB University. It's a great honor to be sharing my knowledge, or academic knowledge and experience with you. Keep in contact. I have a LinkedIn account as well. So you can find my profile on my name, Marco Tieman. So please connect through LinkedIn. It's a small world. And I look forward meeting you in person in Indonesia, or anywhere where we can meet. Terima kasih banyak. And I look forward to see you again. Jumpa lagi.
All right. Thank you so much, Prof. Tieman, for the very good insights and also perspectives. It's a very good to have you two in this occasion. It's a very good honor. So before you leave, we would like to give you a certificate, and let's take a photo first. Okay.
Yeah.
To capture this moment. All right.
And should we have a picture, Rehana?
Yes. Okay. Okay, guys. All of you guys can turn on your camera so we can have the occasion to take a photo with Prof. Tieman. All right. We'll wait until, okay, I think 1 minute more. Okay. Carlita, are you ready to take the shot?
Okay, ready.
Okay. First capture.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Also, thank you, Prof. Tieman, for the occasion, for the opportunity to have you in this session. I'm sorry if there's any mistakes. Thank you so much.
It was a great honor. Thank you.
Okay. All right, before we close our session, let's us listen to the speech from Ibu Dr. and Senyora Safitri. Okay.
Okay,
Boleh, Ibu, silakan.
thank you, Rehana. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like, on behalf of our department, Department of Islamic Economics, IPB University, we would like to convey our thanks a lot and gratitude to Professor Marco Tieman, who has given to us the great lecture today. And hopefully is very important and useful for us, for a student especially, and widen insight, yeah, for a student about the global halal industry in also Indonesia. And again, I would like to thank you very much, Prof. Tieman. Hopefully next year we can invite again. Because this is the second time, yeah, we invite you for our lecture, our guest lecture, and the next time we hope that we can meet again and with the same subjects and another subject. And again, thank you so much, Rehana, for the time. And wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much, Burespa, for the speech and also the closing session for this lecture. And thank you everyone for your attention. We are in the end of the session. Hopefully this material from Prof. Tieman and also the other can be useful. And I'm Rahana Kaputri. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
I'm sharing the PDF now.
Sure, sir.
So the PDF of the slides I'm now putting in.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
So everybody can download it. It's in the chat, right?
Yes, sir. It's in the chat box. Okay, everyone, you can download the material from Prof. Tieman in the chat box.
Thank you, Dr. Iqbal, for your kind invitation. So look forward to meeting again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Iqbal, for your kind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
Again.
We have a final stage of our paper, yeah, Prof. Tieman, yeah.
Yeah, we will have a research for Tieman with the topic about halal industry, global industry, and together with our lecture in our department, inshallah.
Yeah, I look forward to meeting you in Indonesia. Thank you for your kind words. It was a great honor to present at IPB University online and look forward to meeting you in Bogor. Terima
Thank you.
kasih banyak.
Terima kasih.
Bye.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.